I do have all the recordings for yesterday. Like I said, I was having trouble uploading, so I didn't get those up there, but they will be up there for you guys to review before you have any final exam for this sections or anything like that, okay? Just a little housekeeping. So some of the different types of locks. So this is probably the one you'll see most typically. Oh, I got a screen share again. So this is probably the one you'll see most typically, spring latch. They're all over the place. So here will be spring loaded. It'll want to force itself closed. Mechanical one, it'll just have a little lever right here that you need to switch, and then you'll be able to move this back and it'll lock into place.
Those are the ones that we had on all of our overhead cranes.
This is what you had on your overhead cranes?
Yeah, that's the typical one. Anything over 40 or 35 tons,
use it. Nice. So then that's probably the reason why I would say this is typical, because at the places I was at, we didn't have anything over that. And so on all our overheads and stuff like this, we had cranes like this with these spring latches. So just depending where you're going to be.
Even for a 45, we have the spring latch.
You have a spring latch on your 45? Yep.
Yeah. We have like a little. Yeah, you can find them on the. You can find the spring latches on there. Usually, it's if one of these break off, but if these are good, the mechanical latches are good for when you're doing flare stacks and stuff. You can tie a rope to this little latch on the end, and then it's like a really long rope. And then when you get up to the top there, you can pull it down and you can hook up to cool different stuff and do little weird things with it.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, sometimes necessity is the mother of all invention. It's a saying that they used to say, right? If you need to get something done, you figure out a way to do it. So if you need to lock your load into your hook, you're worried about it slipping out for whatever reason, this is something you can tie on to the end. So typically you'll use, I'm sure as we're all mechanical, tool of in our toolboxes, so put on there. So carrying capacity of hooks. Oh, someone needs their microphone. I don't know who it is. Oh, there we go. It's gone. Thank you, whoever it was. Appreciate it. If you're on headphones, it's probably not as bad because then it's not a speaker playing the sound and picking it up on the microphone. But yeah, if you're playing on your speakers or anything like that, if you leave yourself unmuted, then it'll start feedback and stuff like that. Anyhow, so at the perfectly straight up and down where a hook is designed to be in its perfect world, it can carry 100% of the load. And just like our sling, as that angle starts to get smaller, or in this case, as you start to get any angle, we can say here's an angle forming right here. So as this angle gets larger, the carrying capacity of the hook drops quite significantly. When you were the person who works with the big cranes and stuff, or whoever who were working with big cranes, did you have someone who was in charge of all the rigging and stuff like that?
Me, a swapper.
You were the swapper, okay.
But I guess now I'm in charge of all the rigging and stuff like that because we have to unload it off all the trucks and get it sent out once a year for crane inspection and rigging inspection.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So we'll do the rigging inspection usually around CVIP time. We'll do the CVIP and the rigging inspection and then get the picker inspected and get all that stuff all done right up. But back in the day when you had to look, when I was a swamper, you'd always look up over your stuff before and after you use it.
And I'm guessing if you did some of that, you've probably seen this book before or heard of it. You guys seen the
IP crane and rigging handbook? Yeah, I've seen it, but that's more for the guys. Like so I'm pretty sure they have to have something like this in their truck at all times.
Yep.
And then they'll get they'll have their specs book too, and then they almost pull all that stuff out every day when they go out to work. If it's shell, they'll definitely be pulling that out in the morning.
Yep.
And everything else. And then
Yep.
they get them to test everything, run their crane up and down, and then they'll inspect the rigging, make sure all those metal tags are on all the lifting equipment. That's like the big tip. Like that's the big thing. Like any of your lifting stuff doesn't have one of those tags, good luck. You're probably getting sent home.
Oh yeah. Definitely. That's pretty commonplace practice. So, but yeah, those IPT books. I mean, there's one for any any of the industrial trades. There is one. So I have a couple of them. I think I even have that rigging one. Mine's a bit older, but it's a good 1.5 inches thick. So just keep in mind what we're covering here. I mean, we're talking about very generalized stuff very quickly. If you're working at a place where I'm not sure who it was who was telling me about the big cranes. I still don't know all your names or anything yet. But if you're working at a place like that, they're going to be telling you what their standards are and sort of helping you and training you, right? Like their responsibility is, hey, let's not put this guy on a 150-ton crane if he's never done anything like this before. So I'm sure you had some guidance or something along the way originally, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully, anyhow.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So one of the disadvantages about wire ropes is am I screen sharing? Okay, good. Way back in this picture here, way at the beginning, when it came to rigging. Oh, did I go past it? I did. There was that nice picture of all of the stuff here. So you see how these wire cables are all coiled up? All this kind of stuff. They're always going to be like that. Wire slings always coil and end up looking like they're like a telephone cord, an old telephone cord where it's all coiled up, and if it gets a kink in it, then it's no good and it happens easily. But what often happens is because of that twist, as you're lifting, the load is going to want to rotate. We don't want our loads rotating or swinging or anything like that. So what you would use is something like this, a swivel, so that as the wire wants to twist, rather than the load moving, you could have a rope holding the load steady. So some sort of guideline. Rather than that spinning, the actual, there's a pivot point inside of here, right here inside of these, so that the wire rope can easily untwist without affecting the load.
There's a joke there where you get your swamper to come and say, yeah, you need to tighten up that hook there. So they'll get them to spin that swivel to hook it on.
Spin it
So
around
just
and around.
you get your swamper spinning and spinning and spinning until they realize it's not threaded. Because I'll always say, they're like, hey, the 45-ton hook is falling off. You got to tighten it up. And then you get them to spin it until he figures it out.
I've seen those videos before. It's hilarious.
Is everyone getting lagged right now? Is it cutting out a lot? Or a bunch of you are?
You're good
It
now,
happened.
but
Okay. Yeah, I'm having some internet troubles in the college here too this morning. So just so if it does get kicked out, I know I haven't updated those videos yet, but all these will be on the internet somewhere. I'll get them so you can watch them if you miss stuff or if you get kicked out, or if it even is just laggy and I sound like a weird computer person and you can't understand anything that's going on. So we'll get it so you can watch them. All right. So yeah, spreader bars and equalizer beams. We talked about a bit of those before, why we use them, so different ways to set them up. They just make lifting loads a lot easier to hook up a nice way, right? Adjusting where the center of gravity would be, spreading out. For instance, this one here, spreading it out so you can have a nice angle. You don't have any angle, right? You're lifting straight up and down, which is always the best. So.
The shop I used to work at, they had the spreader bar with the 2 cranes, but then also the 2 eyelets on it.
Okay. Yeah, so just the same spreader bar can be hooked up in multiple different configurations, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how you want to do it. You want to try and get one device that you can use for many, many different applications as possible.
Yeah.
These things aren't
And,
cheap either.
and you can use two spreader bars, two trucks, double.
Yeah, any kind of configuration. So wire rope block, you've probably seen these for those of you who've been working with cranes and winches and all that kind of good stuff. There is a wear point and an inspection point for those as well, that if you're working with them, maybe you've had to do it. I know some people who do assemble and disassemble tower cranes and stuff like that, and so this is something part of their job, pulling these apart, inspecting them, maintaining them, preparing them, that kind of thing. They're fairly simple. It's just a bunch of sheaves, which are just like wheels, put into this block, which is bolted together, and then it has a pin that they all pivot on. Just like with anything, where anything pivots, there could be a potential for wear. So that's where it's going to be, where
So the cool thing about those ones with the 3 wheels on it,
Yep.
depending on how you tie your winch line up, you
Yep.
can be rated for a lot more weight. Like depending on how you rig those up, you can be lifting like a lot more than what you're used to if you switch
Yeah.
it up.
And it's actually, it's just a matter of how the mechanical advantage, right? So for instance, we can talk about that. It works, it is amazing. And tow truck drivers use these too for the same thing. So let's say I have 100-pound here. Oh, my writing is so bad. 100-pound weight there. If I just had one string, so I had one string pulling up here, how much weight would that string be pulling? Not wrapped around here, just one eyelet on here pulling up. 100 pounds, yeah, absolutely. Now, if I took 2, so I actually used this block and had, draw a line. So now I have a line coming in, goes around the sheave, and then comes back out, up. Now how much is each one of those taking?
Ouch.
They're each taking 50 pounds. But if each one of them is rated for more than that, well, now I could lift up more, right? Then that's how you start adding that mechanical advantage.
You can go up to, I think it's like quadruple what you're lifting. Like I see how those 3 wheels, you go around and then you can come back down. And you should see sometimes if you're like some of the guys pickers are rigged up like that. It's awesome.
Yeah, so essentially, like you're right, I'm lifting up this 100-pound weight. If I used all 3 of these, the weight that's on any one of those strings is only 30 pounds, roughly. Because of the way it works. Actually, it'd be even less than that. It'd be about 15 pounds because there'd be 6 of them. Okay.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So yeah, I mean, then now imagine if though each one of those strings is rated to lift 100 pounds and there's 6 of them, I could lift 600 safely. So that's essentially how that mechanical advantage works. And yeah, it's just like pulleys. And if any of you remember from high school, this is where physics actually applies to real life.
I guess the only thing you got to be, you can't just lift, any amount of weight because you have it. It's more about just having keeping your winch line in good condition and stuff like that, right? Because the crane can still only lift 45 tons. It's just the way you rig it up, depending on how much tension your line's taking.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about that. Yeah, you want to reduce that. You want to put as little tension on the line as possible, right? Because everything wears out. So, and that's no difference. So this is exactly like that. It's just a bit more temporary. If you've ever used a come along, you've maybe used something similar to this. And a come along is just a chain hoist that is pulling horizontally instead of vertically. So what I had this winter, I went into the ditch or not this winter, I guess last winter. I don't even know. Whenever it was, before New Year's or after New Year's. So I went into the ditch. So here's my truck. Oh man, I'm gonna have some bad pictures this year. My truck in the ditch. And here's the tow truck. So he went, took his winch line and hooked it up. And he's pulling and pulling, and snow's piling up back here, and he couldn't get it out. So what he did is he took one of these snap blocks. He took his line that was coming out. So his line came out. He put the hook of the snatch block on the back of my truck. That. And then he ran the cable around here and to here, to the back of his truck. So he doubled. Now his winch, let's say it could only pull, I don't know, 500 pounds. Now the winch, because of mechanical advantage, was pulling 1,000 pounds. So he had more mechanical advantage. And that's how that works as well. Same idea, right? This is just a crane turned the other way, right? That's all it is. Okay, when you're pulling something sideways, it's the same as pulling something straight up and down. It's just you're pulling it a different way. That's all it is.
It is notable to point out that the pull between the two trucks is the same. Just the actual pull for the winch is required to do is halved.
Yeah, it's if this guy was lighter than me, his truck would start going towards mine, right? Like it just depends which one would move. So, but yeah, the force here, whichever one will move is what it'll do, right? This truck's being pulled like the tow truck. I think this is what you're saying. The tow truck is being pulled this way as much as my truck was being pulled this way, right?
The angle of the rope, I think he's talking about how it's straight up and down, so it's that
Oh.
weight it's taking.
Oh.
No.
No.
What I'm saying is that even though, like, so you put the snatch block on and it cut the pull from his actual winch in half, or doubled it for what you would say.
Yep.
But the force that is exerted on his truck between your truck and his truck is the same as it would be if it was one strand and he was pulling on you. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yep. Gotcha. I see what you mean. Yeah.
Basically just taking the strain off the cable itself.
And the winch.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Rather than having the winch run at full bore to get me to pull out, he has it run at 50%, and it's still giving that same pull on my vehicle.
Yeah, that's like that's just like in big trucks too. On bed trucks, you'll see what it's called a snatch block, which is pretty much exactly what this is. Oh yeah, it is.
Exactly what this is. It's
Yeah.
that's
I
exactly.
don't know. I'm a little slow this morning, I guess.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, what he was doing is the same thing as a winch bed truck would be picking up rig cams. Like it's the exact same. It's just instead of pulling my truck out of the ditch, he's pulling a shack onto his bed or whatever.
Once I got a 45 ton, we had it buried. It was probably almost to the walking deck on the bottom. And then we grabbed our biggest bed truck and we had it put on its side, had the snatch ball coming out the side of the bed truck. And we were literally plowing this 45 ton picker through, like, he had been like 5 feet under the mud. And just pulling through all this mud. And our bed truck was like probably like the tires on the other side were probably almost 3 feet off the ground, 4 feet. But we were just gonna keep flipping it, so we just had to come back down to the ground and then start pulling again and go up 4 feet. It was insane.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some very insane things. If any of you have any good videos of the fun things you've done, please send them to me because I always like to see what happens out there at work. I love work so much I could watch people do it all day long. So that's why I got into this job. Yeah. Anyhow, so sheaves, the pulleys themselves, they do have. This is terrible that it's sideways, but there is some wear indications on here. So manufacturers will give you the specs for this. You'll be able to measure this. Are any of you rebuilding sheave blocks at all, or inspecting them or anything like that? Anybody know? Sometimes depending on where you work. You might be tasked to do this. This is a heavy duty mechanic thing. Yet again, you'll need to know what the specs are before you can say something's broken or not. You need to know how to determine that. So, or if it's worn out or not. Broken is a little bit easier. This thing has a big crack right down the center of it, and it's broken into 2 pieces. I'm fairly certain everyone knows that that isn't how it should be. So, but if you're just measuring for wear, you're going to need to know what a new one would be. So, and here's a chart. Guess who made this chart? IPT Publishing. Excuse me. I'm just burping in everyone's ear. IPT Publishing. So this is out of that rigging and load carrying manual that I showed you. That is where this comes from. And so there is so many charts and specifications and measurements in there. More than you'd care to remember ever in your life. Turnbuckles. So you see these in places. They need to be weighted properly. They can help you with lengthening and shortening lengths. Where else have you guys seen these?
We use them on our flip tops for the cables holding the tarp.
Okay, so like to put tension on the cable. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's a common place where they're used. Absolutely.
They're basically a boomer
They kind of
for
look like
strapping down
boomers,
equipment.
Yes.
Kind of look like a boomer.
So you're talking about a boomer, like a ratcheting boomer. They're just like this, but they have a handle with a ratchet type of device in them, and you ratchet it and
Yeah,
shorten
you bet.
it. Okay, good. Yeah, there is a different type of boomer, which is called a cam, or and it is. They used to be used a lot, and they're
so dangerous now.
Yeah, they're illegal now for loads.
Yeah.
You have to use a ratcheting boomer if you were going to use it. But yeah, that's very similar.
Cam boomers are definitely still legal to use for loads.
Nice. Okay, good to know. As I've seen, I call them the cheap dentist, because if you need to remove a tooth, and buy one and give it a couple taps. And take your.
They're just scary because you have to, when you they snap open, you're like, holy shit.
How to use them properly? They're not very.
I've never really used them right, so I wouldn't know, but I always hear the horror stories.
Do they have to be wired down, or as long as?
We got these wire clips that hold the handles down when you're in transport.
Okay, so there are clips on them. Then that has to be to hold the.
The newer ones have clips.
Okay. Do those clips have to be there, or can you use like an old boomer? Like I used to hold equipment down with old boomers, and then you put wire on it to hold it closed.
They have to be wired. You can use an old boomer, but you have to use the wire. The new ones come with clips.
Perfect. Okay. Well, there we go. I was going to say if you were going to use them, wire. I mean, I still used it on things like transmission jacks. Now, this is just a little tiny one, right? But I still used them, and it wasn't driving down the road. But I have seen them used for equipment and stuff like that. So these for lifting need to be engineered, and they're going to be an easy way if you don't have an adjustable sling. So you have one of those things where you don't have a grab hook that for shortening the length of the sling. This will work just fine for that too. So this is all about crane operation and using a crane. Any of you have a crane over 2,000 kilograms, you should have taken overhead crane training.
I've taken it.
Yeah, is there anyone who hasn't?
I guess me, because I never had a crane in any of the shops I was in.
Okay, sounds good. Well, we do have some cranes in our shop as well. They aren't that big though, so we'll be okay. And
No, I've seen them. I've been in the shop already.
And for us too, for first year, we don't really use the cranes that much. Very, very little. So we'll talk about that as well.
There's a nice cantilever crane in the shop, isn't there?
No, wait. No, it's two just boom cranes, three boom cranes.
I thought there was a swinging cantilever one downstairs by where they used to take the final drives out of the cat.
Oh yeah, okay.
The big yellow one.
I know the one you're talking about. Yep, there is that one. Yeah. I can't even recall what that one's rated for, but it's not as much as you'd think.
No.
I think it's only, like, I have to look, but for some reason I think it's only a 3-ton crane at the most. I'd have to look. We'll find out on Thursday when everybody's here together. We'll take a look at the cranes. It shows you how much I lift things around here for first year, because I don't think I've ever even used the cranes in this shop. I've had no need to. So some of the things to consider when you are lifting, if you haven't had training or if you're just using a small crane, if you don't know any of these, always ask somebody. One of the things that Clint and I like to talk about is ask questions. If you don't know, ask a question. It's much better than trying to explain why everything broke and is needs to be picked up off the floor. Okay, so always ask a question if you're unsure of how something works. Different sling configurations now. So now we'll talk about the different ways. I was talking about basket load, and we talked about how the slings have a stick label on them that'll tell you what the different configurations and their weight ratings will be. So different ways that you rig up a sling will change their weight rating or what they can safely lift. Taglines, that's what I was talking about. You have a nice tagline on there so that you can control the spin and make sure as you're moving a unit, it doesn't start to get out of control, because you never want to be underneath it there or in direct contact with anything that's being lifted and moved. So you need a nice tagline on it.
Taglines are good. That reminds me of you like to keep most of it all wrapped up in your hand when you're holding the tagline.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I had to chase it. He started swinging too fast, and I had to chase it, and I dropped the whole wrap around my hand, and I stepped into it, and he lifted up at the same time, and it coiled up my leg and flipped me upside down, and I like swang out under the load. It was insane.
Yikes.
Yeah. It all happened so fast. I didn't even know. I just got flipped right upside down, and I was like, "Whoa, what's going on?" But it was funny.
So that's a perfect example of how quickly things can go south. I mean, fortunately, it sounds like you were okay. It was just a big scare, like, holy crap, how did I end up upside down? But it could have been that quick where, oh, what just happened? And you're dead, right? Like, it's unfortunate, but that's just an illustration of how quickly things can happen. So it's so quick. You don't even see it coming, right?
The shop that I used to work at, I seen one of my coworkers moving a small hopper, and he was trying to set it down on this circle. Can't remember what exactly it was, but he's trying to set it down. He didn't have a tagline on it, and he was trying to push it, and his leg was underneath the load as he's trying to push it. I had to go and stop him from doing what he was doing there.
Yeah, you don't do that.
All he had to do was hit down, and he would have pinched his leg off there.
Yeah, it can happen really, really, really quickly, and there's no going back.
That's right on a hazard assessment too, pinch points and all that stuff, and don't touch loads and on our hazard assessments.
Yeah, it definitely is something that should be there, and if it's not on them, it's something that, if you're doing a hazard assessment for your specific task, that's something to keep in mind and put on there then, right? Pinch point underneath of a load. Absolutely. Staying out of underneath the load. For anyone who has any questions about it, you never, ever, ever, ever should ever for any reason go under here where it says Courtesy Construction Safety Association. You should never be in this area while this is hung up by this.
And now they're getting to it where you shouldn't even be touching the load. Like, we've all done it, obviously, and just sticking out. But like, they're trying to build equipment for swampers. Like, there's these shovel things so that you hold it with like this kind of like this shovel thing or a hook thing. You can grab onto the hook and push and pull and try to do everything. You're trying to mitigate you touching the load or being close to the load at all times.
Exactly. You don't even want to be close to this. If this thing falls over, who's to say it's not going to tip one way or the other as soon as it comes down? Right? Like, and if you're standing right beside it, you might be in the way that it decides to tip over. But under no circumstances ever be underneath of a load that's suspended. So if you need to be under something, you have to block it up, put it on something solid. Always, 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 always. So, sorry, the vertical hitch. A vertical hitch straight up and down, so we can see this is a wire rope sling, but it would work the same with a chain sling or a nylon sling. Straight up and down, one eyelet on the hook, one hook on the load. We're not really talking about this sling, this angle, this spreader, this adapter that's here, just this sling here. So whatever this weight is, this sling is taking that full weight. It's at 90 degrees, so the whole weight is on the sling, okay? So bridle hitch, we're gonna have, it's just like the vertical hitch, except you have 2 or 3 different legs, okay, coming off of it. Now, remember we talked about 2 legs are only rated for weight? On a 3-leg bridle hitch, only 2 legs support the weight. The third one just balances it. So at any one time, 2 of these have to be able to take the weight of this entire pipe or vessel or whatever it is, and the third one is just to stop it from tipping. And so the reason they're calling these bridles is because essentially you've assembled this if you're doing this type of load. So you would have got a ring, got a couple shackles, put them all on here, put the shackles with the hooks on here. Everything would have been weight rated accordingly, and you'd be lifting up like that. So here you can see an instance where they've used the turnbuckle to adjust the length of one of the legs of the sling, okay? So a single basket hitch, really nice and simple to use. Remember, we want to try and keep that 60 and not go below 45 degrees or 30 degrees they talk about. In this instance here, you'd be at 60 degrees, perfectly safe to lift like that. In this instance here, ideally, this basket hitch at 90 degrees is perfect. The best way to lift something up. Is that possible all the time? No, it's not. A lot of the reason is because of the way loads are. For instance, you couldn't put a single basket hitch on something like this unless you went through the hole in it. Regardless, to go around the way they're doing it here, you're right, a single basket hitch would never work. Double basket hitch, well, this way doesn't look like it would work very good either. Does anyone know why this wouldn't work? Same.
Might slide to the center.
Yeah, both of these slings will just pull right into the center. And then you're gonna have the same problem. You'll have a single basket hitch, and you're gonna have it tipping one way or the other. So you'd want to put it somewhere like this. Oop. Like this one here. So it's held in place. Oh my gosh. Hand. No. Hand. Hand. Move. There we go.
Or do it with a choker.
Yep. Or do it with a choker so that it holds in place and it won't slide. Okay. That's the other way to do it. And I think a double wrap choker similar to what we're talking about. So a double wrap will try and hold these solid as well, okay? And it shouldn't slide because the weight itself is pulling this tight, okay? Here we are, a single choker or a double choker, okay? This is what you're talking about, right?
Well, we call them chain slings, but yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Or sorry, pipe slings.
Okay.
And usually you use 2 and you make that 60 degree.
Okay, so you do something like this.
Yeah, but we try to make 60 degrees with it, or yeah, try to keep it
Spread.
somewhere spread out. Yeah.
Yeah, this one.
Because you know it's hard to find the center,
Yeah.
So like, doing like that in theory is good, but sometimes when you're looking at 60 feet of pipe or whatever, 20 feet of pipe, it's kind of tricky to find the middle. So you want to kind of have them spread out so you can get away with it tilting a bit.
Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right. Like this, it looks nice. If this was 5 feet long, that's fine. That would probably work just fine. You go about to the middle. You don't really have too much weight on either side. Put a tagline on it and hold it stable. Really easy. But yeah, if this is 60 feet long, good luck.
Yeah, you see that on the pipeline a lot.
Doing this on pipeline a lot.
Yeah, moving pipe and stringing it out.
I can imagine, yeah, when you're putting it in place for the fitters to get in position before it gets welded and stuff, the picker truck is just driving along with the pipe or on the trailer, and it's just taking one off, putting it in place, taking one off, putting it in place. So
yeah, pipe fitters will use nylon, but like for what I'm talking about, when you're running pipe down the hole, so you'll be throwing probably like 300 joints or whatever, and you'll be picking 20 or 30 at a time, and you'll be just throwing them on the pipe racks for them to run down the hole.
Oh yeah, okay. Different situations need different rigging, right? So, this is probably a little bit more similar to what you were talking about, hey? Double choker hitch.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
Perfect. And then a double wrap choker hitch. Now, yet again, do you need to know the names for all of these things? A lot of these names aren't necessarily, they are standardized, but not in a way like when they ask you to go hook something up, I don't think your boss is going to ask, well, did you make sure you did a double wrap choker hitch on that? They're just going to ensure that according to how they their best practices, that it's hooked up safely, right? So it's good to know all of these different ways so that you know the different options you have, but to know exact terminology on some of this stuff. If you don't remember, it's not the end of the world, okay? So now we have to determine basket and choker values. So it says in most sling tables, in almost all of them. Any nylon slings that I've seen has it, and almost all the chain ones that have, though, I've seen it on those too. So it'll give you for a single, a basket, and for a choker hitch. What we'll do, I'll look up on here. So this is what it'll look like. So you can see basket. Remember I said ideally in a perfect world, the basket at 90 degrees is what you want. So because you can carry the most. 12,800 pounds. And as a vertical single line, it can carry 6,400. Does anyone notice anything about those two numbers?
Doubled.
Yep, it's doubled. So one leg of that can carry 6,000. But if you go around like that, it can carry 12. Make sense? So basket is a very, very good way to do it. Now a choker, because you're putting kink and strain on there, it limits it below what a vertical can handle, 5,000 pounds. Always go by what this tag will tell you. Regardless of what kind of sling it is, it should have information like this. It should. All right. Crane signals. Who knows the crane signals?
I do.
Yep.
All right. So it is good to know.
That's not what they teach you though, those ones.
These aren't the ones they're teaching you?
No, there's a sign out. I don't know, everybody kind of has their own, but
Yeah.
those ones are definitely not the ones that we use.
They're not.
Yeah, I probably do something like the other guy was talking.
Would you put your hand up and just spin for up and down?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Oh, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then for boom down, it's basically put your thumb down, boom up is thumb up.
Yeah.
And
we do have some of these, right? So
Oh yeah.
yeah, there it is.
these are the ones to move the load, but they're just talking about stopping. These are just the stopping ones, right? So it's pretty common that
Like stop right there is that or down, just one swing down.
Oh yeah, to kill everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, or stop like, or, you know, everyone does this, right? Like,
Yeah, we don't want to do those little hand movements,
you
like anything.
ones.
Yeah, yeah, big ones. Yeah.
And it depends if, for instance, for me, if I'm at the back of a trailer and at the front of the trailer, someone's using the crane, we can't hear each other, but we're only about 20 feet away. He might be able to see it if I'm doing this, right? He might even be able to hear me if I yell.
Oh yeah, when lots of times to avoid that, we'll have walkie-talkies.
Yeah, if you're making a hand signal to a guy who's 40 feet away, who's relaying the message on a radio to an operator who's 100 feet away from him, big difference. You definitely want to be very obvious when you're doing things, right? When it comes to the load positioning, those are fairly standard, right? Like up and down, and then boom up, boom down, and then where you're supposed to swing to, right?
Yeah.
So those
100%.
standard. Let's see, I'll share the screen again. There we go. So yeah, these ones are pretty standard. And now these ones, smaller ones, yet again, depending on where you are, might be a bit different. So this is to try, if you're slow, want him to move, but you're just putting the whatever in place, right? So come down really slowly. Does anyone have a crane in their shop that doesn't have speeds? It's just on or off?
I think ours is. Oh no, you can. It has a half speed and a full speed.
Yeah, a lot of them have two, so it'll be a half speed and a full speed. There are some out there, I'd imagine that still it's just up or on or off essentially. So newer ones now are very much variable, and I mean, if someone's working in an actual crane or picker truck or something like that, those are infinitely variable. Like you can go really slow or all full bore. So slow movement signals, good to know as well. Chances are in our shop here, while we're at first year, we probably won't need any of these. We're going to be close enough, it's quiet enough where we can talk to each other. Chances are you won't even need a spotter to be telling you what you're doing either. So you can you'll be able to hook something up, lift it, move it, put it down, and you'll be able to see the whole operation yourself. So, alrighty. And then for other riggers or depending on what you're doing, right? Like depending if you even have a boom that can be extended or not. So if you use different signals at your work, continue to use those signals. Okay, you don't need to change anything, right? Is this what they show you for shortening and extending booms?
It's kind of like that. It's more above. Like I guess I can show you. It's nothing anything fancy, but basically it's just boom out, boom in, and you want to hold them up over your head, not below your waist.
Oh, okay, gotcha. You want to be high up and visible, right?
Yeah, and then usually they said that's slower. You know, when to do something slowly. Usually you do this to the picker operator. You go like this, just a small sign.
Oh,
Be like, oh, just like this, and then you start doing your normal signs again.
okay. So yet again, if your work is doing something and that's their best practice there and it works, don't let me tell you have to change something because this book says so. So that's not necessarily what I'm here for. This is just a little bit of general knowledge and awareness for somebody who's never dealt with anything like this. There are a bit of standards just to have an idea of what someone might be saying, okay? But if you don't know for sure, hey, is this a sign we actually use for extend boom here? Please go ask someone before you're telling crane operator where you need them to be moving stuff. Alrighty. So we can do this self-test now. Take 10 minutes, get this one done. I think this one's very, very similar to the new one. So we shouldn't have any issues, okay? and then we'll quickly go over it, and then we'll finish up our other two ILMs.
You want a photo of this one too?
Yeah, sure. Let's do that. It seemed to work yesterday.
Hey, Andrew, so are they just texting you your number? Because I missed that. I was at the library.
Yeah, it is my number. Yeah, you have my
Oh,
number. Hey,
I do not. I don't think. I probably could find it in an email.
I'll just put it in the chat.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah, I think I got a whole bunch of them. I didn't count, but it was pretty close to like 20 or something. So yet again, if your phone, if you can't, it's all good. Not the end of the world. I just want to make sure you are doing them. Because if you're not doing them, the only one who you're hurting is you. These are very good tests to see if you know what's going on. Okay, so there's my number in the chat there. You can just text me when you're done. And if you are done, and we're, I think by about 10 o'clock, we'll start up again. So finish this up, take a quick break, grab a bite to eat, go to the bathroom, stretch your legs, whatever you need to do. And yeah, I will be back.
Hmm.